sister stole my identity and ruined my credit. Until I discovered her secret life and turned everything against her. Hello, everyone. Before we start today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thank you very much. Now let's begin the video. Hello, people. I've been reading through posts here for months, never thinking I'd have a story worth sharing. But here I am, and honestly, I still can't believe this happened to me. I need to get this off my chest because carrying it alone has been eating me alive. Let me start by saying I've always been close with my family. My sister, let's call her Rachel, is 3 years younger than me. Growing up, we shared everything: clothes, secrets, dreams. We were inseparable. I was the responsible older sibling who went to college, got a decent job in finance, and started building a stable life. Rachel was the free spirit, always chasing the next adventure, jumping from job to job, relationship to relationship. I never judged her for it. That's just who she was. About a year ago, I started noticing something strange. Small things at first: credit card statements showing purchases I didn't make, a declined card at a restaurant even though I knew I had plenty of available credit. At first, I thought it was just fraud, the random kind that happens to everyone eventually. I called my bank, disputed the charges, got a new card. Problem solved, or so I thought. But then it kept happening. Different cards, different accounts. One month it was a charge for a luxury hotel in Miami. The next month, expensive jewelry from an online boutique. Then designer handbags, premium makeup, high-end electronics. Each time I'd call the bank, file a dispute, and get issued a new card. But the charges kept coming. It was like someone had access to my entire financial life, and no matter what I did, I couldn't stop them. The breaking point came when I tried to refinance my car loan to get a better interest rate. The loan officer looked at my credit report, and his face changed completely. He pushed the paper across the desk to me and said, "I'm sorry, but with a credit score of 482, we can't approve this loan." I stared at the number, unable to process what I was seeing. 6 months earlier, my credit score had been 740. I had worked so hard to build that score, paying every bill on time, keeping my credit utilization low, doing everything right. The report showed thousands of dollars in unpaid credit cards, missed payments, accounts and collections. There were even accounts I'd never opened, cards from stores I'd never shopped at, loans I'd never applied for. Someone had systematically destroyed my financial life, and I had no idea who or how. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop, a notepad, and every credit report I could pull. I went through each fraudulent account line by line, looking for patterns, anything that might give me a clue. Then I noticed something. Several of the fraudulent accounts had been opened using my mother's address, the house where I grew up. I hadn't lived there in 5 years, but Rachel still did. My stomach dropped. No, I thought, it couldn't be. Not Rachel. We were sisters. We trusted each other. She wouldn't do this to me. But the more I looked at the evidence, the more it all pointed in one direction. The timeline matched up perfectly with when Rachel had asked to borrow my identification to open a bank account because she'd misplaced hers. I'd handed over my driver's license and social security card without a second thought because I trusted her completely. I felt sick. I wanted to be wrong so badly. So I decided to test my theory. I told my family during our weekly Sunday dinner that I was going out of town for work for 2 weeks. I even posted on social media about being excited for the business trip. But I wasn't going anywhere. I took time off work and stayed home, watching and waiting. 3 days into my supposed trip, I got an alert on my phone. Someone had tried to open a new credit card in my name at a department store downtown. The application had been declined because I'd put a freeze on my credit the day before. My hands were shaking as I drove to that store. I parked across the street and waited. 20 minutes later, I saw her. Rachel walked out of the store looking frustrated, talking on her phone. I couldn't hear what she was saying, but her body language said it all. She was angry, disappointed. I followed her at a distance as she got into her car and drove across town to a luxury apartment complex. I watched her punch in a gate code and drive inside. This wasn't her apartment. She lived with our parents. Or at least that's what I thought. I waited until she went. Inside one of the buildings, then I approached the gate. Her resident was leaving, and I slipped in behind them. I found the apartment she'd entered and stood outside the door, my heart pounding. I could hear music playing inside and voices talking. I didn't knock. Instead, I went back to my car and did some research. Using the address, I found the property management company's website. A quick search told me the rent for a unit in that building was $3,000 a month. $3,000. Rachel worked part-time at a coffee shop, making minimum wage. There was no way she could afford this. Unless she was using my money, my credit, my entire identity. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. The next morning, I went to the police station and filed a report. I brought every piece of evidence I had. Credit reports, bank statements, receipts from disputed charges, the address of the apartment. The detective assigned to my case was sympathetic, but realistic. "These cases are tough," he told me, "especially when it's family. You'll need to be prepared for what comes next." I knew what he meant, pressing charges against my own sister. But what choice did I have? She'd stolen my identity, ruined my credit, racked up tens of thousands of dollars in debt in my name. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This was calculated, deliberate, and ongoing. That evening, I called a family meeting. I didn't tell anyone why. I just said it was important and we all needed to talk. My parents, Rachel, and me all sitting in the living room where we'd celebrated countless birthdays and holidays. I started calmly. I explained what had been happening to my credit, the fraudulent accounts, the debt, the destroyed credit score. My parents looked horrified. Rachel looked sympathetic, shaking her head and saying things like, "That's terrible. Who would do something like that?" I let her talk. Then I opened my laptop and turned it toward everyone. On the screen was her apartment lease. Her name, signed right there on the line. My mother gasped. My father's face went red. "Where did you get that?" Rachel demanded, her voice rising. "How did you find that?" I kept my voice steady. "The better question is how you're paying for it. Because according to this lease, you've been living in a $3,000 a month apartment for the past 8 months. That's $24,000. Where did that money come from, Rachel?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. She looked at our parents, then back at me. Her face had gone pale. I didn't stop. I pulled up the credit report, scrolling through the list of accounts. Each one, I said, pointing at the screen, opened using my social security number, my date of birth, my mother's address where you currently live. Some of them even have your phone number listed as the contact. The room was silent, except for my mother's quiet crying. Rachel finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I was going to pay you back. I was so angry I almost laughed. Pay me back. Rachel, you've destroyed my credit score. I can't get a loan. I can't even rent an apartment without a cosigner now. Do you understand what you've done?" She started crying then, big dramatic sobs. "I'm sorry," she wailed. "I didn't mean for it to get this bad. I just needed help and I didn't know what else to do." My father, who had been silent this whole time, finally spoke. "What happens now?" I took a deep breath. "I filed a police report. I'm pressing charges for identity theft and fraud. The detective said they'll be issuing a warrant for her arrest." My mother let out a strangled sound. Rachel's head snapped up, her tears stopping instantly. "You're having me arrested!" Her voice was no longer sad. It was furious. "I'm your sister. You have 24 hours, I said, to turn yourself in. If you do that, the detective said it might go easier for you. If you run, it will be worse." I left that night and didn't look back. My phone exploded with calls and texts, my mother begging me to reconsider, my father saying I was tearing the family apart. Rachel sent me a long message calling me heartless and cruel, saying I was ruining her life over money. Over money. As if money was the issue here. As if trust and betrayal meant nothing. I blocked them all. I needed space to think, to breathe, to process everything. The next day, Rachel didn't turn herself in. Instead, she went on social media. She posted a long story about how I was attacking her out of jealousy, how I'd always been the golden child and couldn't stand to see her succeeding. She painted herself as the victim, me as the villain. Some people believed her. Old friends reached out, asking for my side of the story. I didn't respond. I knew the truth would come out eventually. 3 days later, Rachel was arrested at the coffee shop where she worked. It was all very public. Customers filmed it on their phones. The video ended up on local news. Family dispute leads to identity theft arrest. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know the real story. My mother called me crying, saying I'd humiliated Rachel. I reminded her that Rachel had humiliated herself. I'd given her a chance to turn herself in quietly. She'd chosen differently. The next few weeks were a blur of legal proceedings. Rachel's lawyer tried to argue that it was a family misunderstanding, that I'd given her permission to use my credit. But the evidence was overwhelming. Text messages where she'd asked to borrow my identification. Bank records showing the pattern of theft. Testimony from employees at stores where she'd opened fraudulent accounts. The apartment lease with her signature. During the trial, more information came out. The apartment wasn't even the worst of it. She'd been living a completely fabricated life. Designer clothes bought on my credit, expensive dinners at restaurants I'd never been to, trips to resorts I'd never visited. She'd even bought a car, a luxury SUV, using a loan she'd taken out in my name. All of this while telling our family she was struggling to make ends meet, while I sent her money when she said she couldn't afford groceries. The day of sentencing, I sat in the courtroom and watched my sister stand before the judge. She looked small and scared, nothing like the confident person who'd been posting selfies from expensive vacations funded by my ruined credit. The judge was not sympathetic. Identity theft is a serious crime, he said. The fact that it was committed against a family member makes it even more egregious. This was a calculated breach of trust that lasted for months. Rachel was sentenced to 3 years in prison and ordered to pay full restitution. $78,000. That's how much she'd stolen from me in total. $78,000 of fraudulent charges, destroyed credit, and betrayal. As they led her away, she looked at me. I expected anger or hatred, but instead I saw something else. Regret, maybe. Or just the realization of what she'd lost. Not just her freedom, but her family, her reputation, her future. My mother didn't speak to me for months. She blamed me for Rachel being in prison, said I should have handled it differently, kept it in the family. But my father eventually came around. He apologized for not believing me sooner, for defending Rachel when the evidence was right there. We're slowly rebuilding our relationship. As for me, I'm still dealing with the aftermath. My credit score is slowly climbing back up. I've had to dispute every fraudulent account, close every fake credit card, rebuild everything from scratch. It's exhausting and frustrating, but I'm making progress. The apartment Rachel had been living in? I did some more digging after the trial. Turns out she wasn't living there alone. She had a boyfriend, someone she'd been with for over a year that none of us knew about. He was the one encouraging her lifestyle, pushing her to spend more, live bigger. When she got arrested, he disappeared. Blocked her number, moved out of the apartment, vanished completely. She lost everything for someone who didn't even care enough to stand by her. I think about that sometimes. How she threw away our relationship, our family, her entire future for a lifestyle that was built on lies. For a boyfriend who abandoned her the second things got difficult. Was it worth it? I want to believe that somewhere deep down she regrets it, that she understands the magnitude of what she did. But I honestly don't know. Some days I miss my sister. Not the person who stole from me, but the girl I grew up with. The one who used to braid my hair and tell me secrets and laugh at my terrible jokes. That person is gone, if she ever really existed at all. My friends ask if I'll ever forgive her. I don't know how to answer that. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or excusing what happened. It doesn't mean having her back in my life or trusting her again. Maybe someday I'll reach a place where the anger fades and I can wish her well from a distance. But that day isn't today. Today, I'm focused on rebuilding what she destroyed. My credit, my trust, my peace of mind. The hardest part isn't the money or the legal mess. It's the betrayal. Knowing that someone I loved and trusted could look me in the eye, hug me at family dinners, and then go home and open another credit card in my name. That level of deception is hard to process. It makes you question everything. Every memory, every conversation, every moment you thought was real. But here's what I've learned. You can't control other people's choices. You can only control your response. I chose to protect myself and hold her accountable. Some people think that makes me cold or heartless. but I know the truth. Setting boundaries and demanding consequences doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you someone who values yourself enough to not be a doormat. Rachel made her choices. She chose the luxury apartment over honesty. She chose the designer clothes over integrity. She chose a fake life over a real relationship with her family. Those were her decisions, not mine. Now she's serving time and I'm rebuilding. Life isn't fair, but it does have a way of balancing itself out eventually. As for advice, if you suspect someone close to you is stealing your identity, don't wait. Don't make excuses. Don't let family pressure convince you to ignore it. Protect yourself, file the reports, press charges if necessary. Your financial future is too important to sacrifice on the altar of family loyalty. Real family wouldn't put you in that position in the first place. I'm sharing this story because I know there are others out there going through something similar. Maybe it's a family member, a friend, a partner. Maybe you're making excuses for them right now, telling yourself it's not that bad or they'll change. I'm here to tell you that it doesn't get better until you take action. The longer you wait, the worse the damage becomes. I waited too long and it cost me years of financial stability. Looking back, there were signs I ignored. Rachel's sudden interest in my personal information, her asking to borrow my identification for supposedly innocent reasons, her defensiveness when I asked about her lifestyle. I ignored all of it because I didn't want to believe my own sister would betray me. Trust your instincts. If something feels off, investigate. Better to be wrong and apologize than to be right and face financial ruin. The system isn't perfect. Even with evidence, getting justice took months of fighting, but it was worth it. Not for revenge or punishment, but for accountability. Rachel needed to face the consequences of her actions. Letting her get away with it would have only enabled her to do it to someone else, maybe even to our parents next. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is to let them face the results of their choices. Today, my credit score is back up to 620. It's not where it was before, but it's climbing steadily. I've learned more about credit protection than I ever wanted to know. Freezes, fraud alerts, monitoring services. I check my credit report obsessively now. Once burned, twice careful. The apartment building where Rachel lived? They sued her for unpaid rent when she got arrested. Just another debt added to her pile. The luxury SUV she bought in my name, repossessed and sold at auction. I didn't get any money from that sale. It went to the loan company. But at least the debt is closed. I've started therapy to deal with the emotional fallout. Turns out, having your identity stolen by a family member does a number on your ability to trust people. My therapist says I'm doing well, all things considered. Some days I believe her. Other days I wonder if I'll ever feel completely safe again. But I'm working on it, one session at a time, one day at a time. The strangest part is running into people who knew Rachel. They always have the same reaction. I can't believe she did that. She seemed so nice. That's the thing about con artists, even amateur ones. They're good at seeming nice. They have to be. Nobody would trust them otherwise. Rachel was always charming, always had a story that made you want to help her. I fell for it for years. Our parents fell for it. Even after everything came out, some people still defended her, saying I must have done something to push her to it. As if identity theft is ever justified. 3 years seems like a long time, but it's not enough. Not really. She'll be out when she's 30. Still young enough to rebuild her life if she chooses to. Meanwhile, I'll still be dealing with the aftermath of her choices for years to come. The credit damage might take a decade to fully recover from. Some of those negative marks will stay on my report for 7 years. Every loan application, every rental agreement, every financial decision will be harder because of what she did. But I'm not letting it define me. I'm not the victim here. I'm the survivor. There's a difference. If Rachel reads this someday, I want her to know something. I didn't do this to hurt you. I did this to save myself. You made a choice and I made one too. Mine was to refuse to be destroyed by your betrayal. I hope prison gives you time to reflect on what you've lost and why. I hope you come out a better person, someone capable of honesty and genuine remorse. But whether you do or not isn't my concern anymore. I've moved on. To everyone watching, thank you for listening to my story. If you learned something, or if this helped you in any way, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. Your support helps us create more content and share more stories. And if you're going through something similar, please know you're not alone. There are resources, support groups, legal options. You don't have to suffer in silence. Protect yourself, trust your instincts, and remember that blood relation doesn't give anyone the right to destroy your life. Family is about love and respect, not obligation and abuse. Thank you for watching,